She left a kid on my office steps and vanished. I thought I was just babysitting, until I found out the child wasn't even hers. What came next involved the FBI, courtroom chaos, and a shocking secret. My sister told me, "I'll destroy your life if you don't do this for me." She wasn't crying. She wasn't begging. She was smiling. That was the moment I realized Marley wasn't just the spoiled brat I'd grown up with. She was dangerous, and somehow I'd let her get close enough to hold a knife to my throat. Not literally, but she knew exactly where to cut. And I think she enjoyed it. Let me back up. My name's Caleb. I'm 29, and if there's one thing I've worked for harder than anything in my life, it's peace. Peace of mind. Peace in my home. Peace in my damn head. Because growing up in my family, there was no such thing. My mom hated me. No, I'm not being dramatic. I wasn't the golden child. I wasn't even the backup option. I was the mistake. Born after an affair my mom had during a separation, and once she got back together with her husband, Marley's dad, I became the living, breathing reminder of her screw-up. I was that kid. The one who didn't get birthday parties. The one who got told to eat in the laundry room when guests came over. The one who got dragged out of school to babysit Marley whenever mom had a spa appointment. Meanwhile, Marley, she was Angel Girl. Princess Marley. Our little miracle. She had a pink canopy bed, ballet lessons, an annual trip to Disney, and a walk-in closet full of whatever brand she wanted. I had a cot, a cracked iPod, and hand-me-downs from a neighbor's son, who was 3 sizes too big and had a stutter. Marley mocked me for that too. Said I looked slow. I never fought back. I buried myself in books, computers, coding. I knew I had one way out, and it wasn't through begging anyone in that house for love. I left home at 18 with 2 trash bags, a half-paid scholarship, and a brain wired by trauma and caffeine. 10 years later, I was managing a team at a tech company, had a penthouse apartment in downtown Denver, and more peace than I'd ever had in my life, at least until last month. It started with a phone call I shouldn't have answered. "Caleb," she chirped. That voice, that chirpy, fake sweetness, always made my teeth itch. I was just thinking about you. So random, right? I hadn't spoken to Marley in over a year. She talked fast, told me her daughter Lily was sick with the flu and she needed a teeny tiny favor. Just for the weekend. She said her sitter bailed last minute. She said it'd be so nice for Lily to finally meet her uncle. I said no, not because I hated the kid. I didn't know the kid. But Marley and I didn't have a relationship. She'd never reached out to me unless she wanted something. And honestly, something about her voice just felt off. The next day, I got an email from Marley. No subject, just an attachment. A scanned copy of my therapy intake form from 5 years ago. It had my full name, diagnosis, PTSD, post-accident, the name of my therapist, and a note about medication recommendations. And below it, one line typed in bold, "If you don't help family, you'll have no job to go back to Monday." I stared at the screen for a long time. That file? I only gave it to one person outside of my doctor, my mother, years ago. Back when I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd understand me better if I opened up about what the accident did to me. I guess I forgot who I was dealing with. I didn't respond. The next day, Marley called me again. This time, there was no sugar in her voice. "You think you're better than us now?" She snapped. "You think hiding in your high-rise with your stupid job makes you untouchable? I will ruin you. I've already written the email. I'll BCC your boss, your HR, and your damn CEO if I have to. I'll tell them you've been spiraling, that you're not medicated, that you had a breakdown last year." I didn't. I interrupted. "Doesn't matter," she said, her voice suddenly low and terrifyingly calm. "They'll believe me. You're already the weird one, the loner. It's not hard to make a case." I hung up, but the damage was done. I had a panic attack that night. I couldn't sleep. I kept refreshing my email, dreading some HR subject line that would end my career. I ended up calling Devin, my boyfriend. We'd been long distance for over a year. Him in Seattle finishing law school. Me in Denver trying to pretend I wasn't always one phone call away from spiraling. I told him everything. He didn't speak for a long time. Then he said something I didn't expect. "Get her to say it again. Record it." "What?" "You need proof. Don't yell. Don't argue. Just bait her. She's emotional, right? She'll repeat it." I didn't love the idea. It felt like a trap, like something Marley would do to me. But I knew he was right. The next day, I called her. I made sure to sound calm, apologetic even. Told her I just needed to understand what she meant about ruining me. I asked if she really would send my file. She laughed. "Oh, babe," she said. I already drafted the whole email. If you don't take Lily tonight, it's going out. Click. I ended the call and saved the file. I didn't hear from her again that night, but the next morning I got a Slack message from my team lead. Hey, Caleb. HR wants to chat around 3 today. Nothing urgent, just a routine check-in. My blood turned to ice. I stared at that message for 10 minutes straight. I already knew what was happening. Marley had pulled the trigger. But what she didn't know was that this time I'd loaded the gun too. I took the next few hours to prep every single document. I called my therapist, my psychiatrist, got letters from both confirming I was stable, medicated, and had been for years. I printed copies of my prescription logs, dated and signed. And then I packed the recording. The one where my sister spelled out, in full, that she would blackmail me with private medical information unless I agreed to watch her daughter. By 3 p.m., I walked into that HR meeting with a smile. And 3 hours later, I walked out with something better than peace. I walked out with leverage. But when I checked my phone afterward, I saw a voicemail from an unknown number. It was short, garbled. I hit play and listened. I told you I'd ruin you, but you really thought that was the worst I could do? Pause. Then she laughed, and the voice shifted into something colder. Look outside your building, Caleb. I left you a present. My heart stopped. I stood up, walked to the window, looked down toward the front of my building. There was a small figure standing by the curb, tiny backpack, holding a stuffed bunny. It was a little girl, alone. She looked up toward the building like she was waiting for someone to come down. My phone buzzed again. I ran. I didn't even grab my coat. I flew out of the HR office, took the elevator down so fast I nearly threw up, and sprinted through the building's lobby. The receptionist called my name. I didn't stop. All I could think about was the little girl standing out front, alone, with nothing but a tiny pink backpack and a stuffed bunny clutched to her chest. When I pushed through the glass doors and saw her still there, standing awkwardly by the curb, a wave of nausea hit me like a truck. That was Lily, my niece, 4 years old, abandoned on a downtown sidewalk like a FedEx package. She looked up at me with these huge brown eyes and said softly, "Are you Uncle Caleb?" I couldn't answer. I dropped to my knees and just nodded. I couldn't speak. My voice was caught somewhere between disbelief and fury. She handed me a piece of paper. It was crumpled, folded 3 times, and scrawled in Marley's chaotic handwriting. "Have fun, sucker. She likes apple juice and hates broccoli. I'll be in Mexico. Don't call me." There was no contact number, no emergency info, nothing. I looked around, expecting maybe, I don't know, a rideshare driver? Some adult nearby? But there was no one. Marley had literally dumped her child on a city curb and left. Back in my apartment, I gave Lily some water, turned on cartoons, and sat on the edge of my couch staring at the wall, trying not to hyperventilate. My phone was blowing up. Texts from Marley, all smug and smugger. "She's with you now. Be a good uncle. Try not to screw her up like you did yourself." I had no idea what to do. Legally, emotionally, logistically. I was completely unequipped. I wasn't a parent. I didn't even own kid-sized cups. There was a whole human being in my living room watching Bluey and swinging her legs off the couch like this was normal. It wasn't. I called Devin. I could barely get the words out, but when I told him Marley had left her kid with me without consent, without notice, and then fled the country, his voice dropped. "She abandoned her child," he said. "Caleb, this is criminal. You need to call CPS, tonight." But I hesitated. Not because I wanted to protect Marley. She could rot. But because Lily, this tiny innocent girl, was sitting in my living room wearing a jacket 2 sizes too small and socks with holes in them, and she had no idea what was going on. I remembered what it felt like to be a kid and feel unwanted. Like everyone who was supposed to love you just couldn't be bothered. I wasn't about to be another adult who failed her. So I made her mac and cheese. She asked me shyly if we could color together. I said yes, even though my hands were shaking the whole time. Later that night, when I tucked her into the guest bed and she asked if I'd be there in the morning, I told her yes, even though I had no idea if it was true. The next morning, I did what Devin said. I called CPS. I told them everything. Every horrifying detail. The abandonment, the blackmail, the lack of legal guardianship, the fact that my niece had shown up at my office building like a stray. To my surprise, the caseworker was helpful and alarmed. They opened an immediate investigation and scheduled a home visit for the next day. I thought that would be the worst of it. But I was wrong. Because somehow, Marley found out I called them. And then all hell broke loose. It started with a call from an unknown number. I didn't answer. Then came the email. You really want to play like that? Fine. Let's see what HR thinks when they hear about that little breakdown you had in college. I've still got Dad's police report from the night you OD'd. That was a lie. I never overdosed. But Marley was weaponizing an incident I'd barely survived when I was 19, the night I almost jumped off a bridge because I couldn't take another year under my mother's roof. I'd gotten help. I'd gone to therapy. I'd rebuilt my life. But in Marley's eyes, that made me weak. Defective. And now she wanted to use it to destroy me. I tried to stay calm. I documented everything. Saved every message. But nothing prepared me for what happened the next morning. At 6:43 a.m., someone buzzed my apartment. I was half asleep in boxers and a t-shirt when I opened the video feed. It was my mother. And standing next to her was a man I'd never seen before. Older, maybe in his 60s, tall, bald, wearing a suit. He was holding a briefcase. My stomach dropped. I opened the door an inch, just enough to speak. What the hell are you doing here? My mom didn't even blink. You have something that doesn't belong to you. Behind me, Lily's sleepy voice called from the hallway. Uncle Caleb? My mother pushed forward. I'm taking my granddaughter, she said coldly. You're not stable, you're not family, not real family. The man beside her, a lawyer, apparently, handed me a folder. Inside was an emergency motion filed in family court, claiming I was mentally unfit to care for a child and that my mother should be granted temporary custody of Lily. She'd filed it less than 24 hours after Marley found out about CPS. I stood there, barefoot and stunned, while Lily clung to my leg, asking if Grandma was going to take her away. I couldn't speak. But in that moment, I made a decision. I wasn't letting them take her. Not again. I looked my mother in the eye and said, You're not stepping foot in this apartment. Call the cops if you want. She did. 10 minutes later, 2 officers showed up. I explained the entire situation, handed them the CPS paperwork, told them Lily was under temporary protective supervision and that I had a home visit scheduled today. They backed off. They didn't let my mother take her, but the damage was done. By the time CPS arrived later that afternoon, I had a knock on the door from a court server. I was officially being sued for unlawful detainment of a minor and defamation, filed by Marley, signed by my mother. And just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, the CPS agent asked if we could speak privately. I sat across from her, exhausted, while Lily napped in the other room. She cleared her throat and said, We have a problem. There's a discrepancy in Lily's birth records. Her legal custody doesn't belong to Marley. My heart started pounding. What do you mean? The agent paused, opened her folder, and said 6 words that made my entire body go cold. Marley is not Lily's legal mother. I stared at the CPS agent like she had just spoken in another language. What do you mean? Marley isn't Lily's legal mother? The agent didn't blink. According to state records, Lily's birth certificate lists a different woman as the biological mother. The name listed is Danielle Vega. That name meant nothing to me. Nothing. I'd never heard it before in my life. She's not listed as an adoptive guardian either, the agent continued. In fact, Marley's name doesn't appear on any legal documentation tied to this child. I leaned back in my chair, the air sucked out of my lungs. So, I managed, are you telling me Marley kidnapped her? The agent didn't answer directly. We're trying to determine what role Marley played in Lily's life. But if she wasn't legally the mother, and you weren't given custody, then technically, you've been unknowingly caring for a child who doesn't belong to either of you. That was the moment the room spun. All this time. All this hell. The blackmail, the threats, the abandonment. And now it turns out Marley may not have had any legal right to Lily at all. I couldn't even begin to process what that meant. For the next 48 hours, my apartment turned into a crime scene. CPS agents, detectives, paperwork, questions, endless questions. They asked me everything. When did I first meet Lily? Did I witness Marley physically caring for her? Did I ever see her pregnant? And I realized something that made my blood run cold. Number I hadn't. I hadn't seen Marley in nearly 6 years until that call. The photos of her pregnancy? All posted online. None of them with a clear bump. The baby pictures? Always close up. Always edited. Always just her and Lily. Never at the hospital. Never with family. I started wondering things I'd never considered before. Had Marley lied to our whole family? Had she taken a child that wasn't hers? And just pretended? I asked the CPS agent what would happen next. She sighed. We're trying to locate Danielle Vega. If she's alive, she's Lily's legal guardian. I didn't sleep that night. Lily was asleep in the guest room, hugging her bunny like always, while I paced the living room in circles. My mind wouldn't shut off. What kind of person does this? What kind of woman pretends to be a child's mother for 4 years, abandons her on the street, then threatens anyone who tries to protect her? I knew Marley was messed up. But this? This was sociopathic. And yet, the worst part wasn't the legal stuff. It wasn't the police or CPS or even the media that had now caught wind of the situation. The worst part was Lily, because the more time I spent with her, the more I saw just how much she had been neglected. She flinched when someone knocked at the door. She panicked when I left the room for too long. She apologized for crying. She apologized. She was 4. I had to excuse myself to the bathroom more than once just to cry without her seeing me. 2 days later, I got a call. Blocked number. I hesitated, then picked up. It was Marley. "Oh, so you are still playing daddy," she said. Her voice was scratchy, hoarse, like she'd been screaming or smoking. Or both. "You lied," I snapped. "You're not Lily's mom. What the hell did you do?" There was a pause on the other end. Then she laughed. "Of course I'm not her mom," she said, like I was the stupid one. "You think I'd ruin my body for a kid?" I felt sick. "So what, you just took her?" "Oh my God, Caleb," she groaned. "You're so dramatic. I didn't kidnap her. Danielle gave her to me. She was some loser junkie from Bakersfield. She couldn't take care of her. I rescued Lily." I wanted to reach through the phone and choke her. That's not how custody works, Marley. That's not how anything works. You don't just keep a kid and change their name because you feel like it. "She didn't want her," Marley spat. "And neither did her dad. I gave Lily a life. I gave her me. That's better than any of them." I took a breath. "So why'd you dump her on me?" She paused. Then, her voice lowered. "Because I was tired, okay? I was tired of being good." That was the last thing she said before hanging up. The next morning, I got a knock on my door. I opened it, expecting another agent, maybe even Devin. But instead, it was a woman. Late 20s, messy hair, faded hoodie, eyes that looked like they hadn't slept in weeks. She didn't say anything at first, just stared at me. Then looked down and saw Lily sitting on the rug behind me, drawing pictures on the floor. She started crying. "I'm Danielle," she whispered. She said her name was Danielle. And I swear, the moment she saw Lily on my living room floor, the entire atmosphere shifted. Her face crumbled. Her knees gave out. She dropped to the ground like gravity doubled its pull, sobbing into her hands. "I thought she was dead," she whispered. "For 4 years, I thought my baby was dead." I stood frozen in the doorway, heart pounding. Lily looked up from her coloring book, confused, and asked, "Uncle Caleb, who's that lady?" I didn't know what to say. Danielle lifted her face slowly, still shaking. "Does she know who I am?" I stepped in front of her protectively. "Not yet. You need to explain what's going on. All of it." She nodded. And what she told me unraveled everything I thought I knew. 4 years ago, Danielle was a 22-year-old single mom in California. She'd just left an abusive relationship with a man who beat her and left her homeless with a newborn. She was desperate, broke, and sleeping in a car with Lily. One night, at her lowest, she called her old friend from high school, someone she hadn't spoken to in years but remembered as rich and well-connected. That friend was Marley. "She told me she'd help," Danielle said, voice flat. "She said she had money, stability, a guest room. She said she'd get me back on my feet." For the first 2 weeks, things were fine. Marley bought baby clothes, posted pictures of Lily, took Danielle shopping. Danielle thought maybe, just maybe, she was safe. But then Marley started asking weird questions. How committed Danielle was to this whole mom thing. Whether Lily would be better off with someone who could actually provide. She even asked Danielle to sign a temporary guardianship form, just in case of emergencies, she'd said. Danielle refused. And then, one night, Danielle went out for groceries while Marley babysat. When she got back, Lily was gone. So was Marley. She filed a police report, called every number, begged, screamed, searched shelters. She was told, eventually, that Marley had relocated and that it was a civil custody dispute. She outsmarted the system, Danielle told me. She used her money, her lies, and the fact that I had no legal team to make it look like I had abandoned Lily. And then, she disappeared. I was shaking by the time she finished. All this time, I thought Marley was just cruel, a manipulative narcissist. But this wasn't just abandonment. This was calculated. This was kidnapping. And now the real mother was standing in my apartment crying while her daughter, who no longer remembered her, happily colored with crayons. That night, I couldn't sleep. Danielle was in the guest room. Lily was in mine. I sat on the couch staring at the ceiling, rage burning so deep in my chest I could taste it. Marley hadn't just threatened me. She'd destroyed Danielle's life. She'd used a child like a pawn. She tried to ruin my career. And she was walking free, somewhere, smug and untouchable. But not for long. I made 3 calls the next morning. One to CPS, confirming Danielle's identity and sharing everything she told me. One to Devin, who promised to help Danielle file for immediate emergency custody. And one to an old college friend of mine, Nate. He runs a popular investigative podcast. Think Serial meets Dateline. And he owes me a favor. When I told him the full story, every insane detail, he paused and said, "This'll break the internet." We got to work, fast. Within 3 days, I had Danielle on mic, telling her story. We blurred her face, changed her voice. Nate's team verified documents, built a timeline, and, with my permission, used my recordings of Marley's blackmail. They found hundreds of suspicious social media posts, stolen photos, fake locations, even a GoFundMe where Marley pretended Lily had leukemia and scammed strangers out of $18,000. The episode was titled, "The Woman Who Stole a Daughter and Got Away with It." It dropped on a Thursday morning. By Thursday afternoon, #JusticeForLily was trending on Twitter. By Thursday night, Marley's entire Instagram was down. Her name was on Reddit. TikTok sleuths started digging into her high school history. By Friday morning, the police knocked on her door. But Marley wasn't there. She'd already fled. Again. I thought it was over. That she'd vanish for good. Or that the justice system would drag its feet like it always does. But Saturday morning, I got a call. Blocked number. I picked up. Silence. Then, "You're gonna wish you never met that little brat." It was Marley. Before I could respond, she hung up. I showed the call to the detective. They traced the number. It was from a burner phone purchased 2 towns over. And that's when I realized something that made my blood run cold. Lily had started sleepwalking again. It was new. Just started 2 nights ago. And every time I found her in the hallway, she was mumbling something under her breath. One night, I followed her, gently guiding her back to bed. I tucked her in, kissed her forehead. But right before I turned off the light, she whispered something that made my skin crawl. "Mommy said if I talk too much, I'll get locked in the closet again." I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, Danielle got a notification. Her old cloud account, the one she thought she'd lost access to, had been logged into from a foreign IP. Someone had tried to delete the photos of Lily's birth, her hospital ID, her baby pictures. It wasn't just about Marley covering her tracks anymore. She was trying to erase Lily's entire identity. That was when Devin, my boyfriend, the legal eagle, said something I hadn't even thought of. If Marley has access to that account and she's in hiding, she may be trying to build a new ID for Lily. A new birth certificate? A new life. Somewhere far away. "But she doesn't have Lily," I said. "She can't take her." Devin looked at me. "Caleb, what if she doesn't need to take her?" I blinked. "What are you talking about?" He opened his laptop and showed me something. A missing child poster. New. Dated yesterday. Same name, same age, same description. Except this version had a different photo. Photoshopped. Grainy, filed in Mexico. By a woman listed as legal mother Marley Vega. The missing child alert in Mexico had Marley's name on it. The fake photo. The doctored birth certificate. The alias Marley Vega. She was trying to erase Lily. Again. But this time, it wasn't just petty revenge. It was an international felony. That night, I barely spoke. Danielle was pacing. Devin was on the phone with federal authorities. CPS had already escalated the case to the FBI. All I could do was stare at Lily while she slept, curled up with her stuffed bunny, and think, she's not safe until Marley's behind bars. 3 days later, we got the call. They'd found Marley. She was arrested trying to board a private charter flight out of Guadalajara. She had forged documents in her bag, $30,000 in cash, and a plane ticket to the Philippines. She told authorities she was escaping an abusive ex. Classic Marley. always the victim, always spinning lies. But this time, no one believed her. The story had gone viral. Nate's podcast had exploded. Major outlets picked it up. The Cut, BuzzFeed, even CNN. People were outraged. Marley's face was everywhere. Her lies, her crimes, her trail of destruction. And the best part? She couldn't control the narrative anymore. Extradition took 2 weeks. During that time, Lily started talking in her sleep again. Danielle and I took turns sitting by her bed. Sometimes she'd cry for her old mommy. But more and more, she called for me. Uncle Caleb, are you here? Always softly. Always like she wasn't sure I'd still be there. I never left her side. The trial was scheduled 6 months after Marley's arrest. She was facing charges in multiple jurisdictions, including child abduction, wire fraud, identity theft, and obstruction of justice. She showed up in court with a brand new lawyer and a face full of Botox, like she thought if she looked perfect, everything would disappear. But no amount of lip filler could save her now. They played the podcast in court. They played my recordings of her threats. They played the CPS interviews, Danielle's testimony, the financial records, the GoFundMe scam. And then the prosecution did something brilliant. They brought in Lily, not to testify. She was too young, but they showed a video of her at school, drawing, laughing. And then a clip of her saying, "Mommy used to say I had to be quiet, but Uncle Caleb says I can sing now." The entire courtroom went silent. I looked over at Marley. For the first time, she wasn't smiling. She was convicted on all counts, sentenced to 35 years without parole. The judge called her a master manipulator with no regard for human life, and said she posed an active threat to any vulnerable person she encountered. And as they cuffed her and led her out of the courtroom, she turned back to look at me. I expected a final insult, a scream, a threat. Instead, she smiled. A sad, broken, hollow little smile. Like she finally understood she'd lost. Not just the trial, not just her freedom, but me and Lily, forever. It's been a year since then. Danielle was granted full legal custody. She and Lily now live just 2 blocks from me. I helped them get settled. I helped Lily get into a great preschool. I still pick her up twice a week for Uncle Caleb days. We make spaghetti and paint rocks in the park. Devin moved to Denver. We live together now. And yeah, I asked him to marry me. He said yes. The day I told Lily, she clapped and said, "That means I get 2 uncles now." And then immediately asked if we could all go to Chuck E. Cheese to celebrate. It wasn't the ending I expected, but it's the one I needed. And every now and then when I feel the weight of everything Marley did, the trauma, the fear, the chaos, I look at that little girl's smile. And I remember, she tried to destroy me. She tried to erase a child. She tried to twist the truth into something ugly and permanent. But instead, I gave that child her name back. I gave her a future. And I gave her a family. Marley took everything she could. And I'm still standing. She's not.